Context. Back in 2015, I, male, now 35, had a major mental breakdown and a short stay in hospital after my ex-wife, Lauren, now 36, abandoned me and took our infant baby son, James, now a tween, 250 miles away, under the pretense of getting more help with caring for him. After finding out she wasn't coming back, and several weeks of very weird discussions and therapy, I said I wanted to separate. Lauren started a very, very messy divorce, including false accusations, threatening behavior against her and James, against me, that still hurts to this day. It has taken years, child contact centers, and a lot of compromising to get to a stage where Lauren and James and her partner are all happy for me to visit. I always travel up to them, and they refuse to meet in the middle. We have reasonably open lines of communication and plan these visits together. It's also essential to know that James is autistic and finds change very difficult and anxiety-provoking. Current day. After rescheduling 2 visits, one after Christmas, James felt too overwhelmed, and one in February, James was ill. I finally went up to see James. He even asked if my wife, Kathy, 35, could come with me, which is a huge deal because he decided a couple of years ago that he'd rather it just be me. The visit went so well. James was very playful and more affectionate than ever. He got on well with Kathy and I have some wonderful memories from it. A couple of days after the visit, Kathy and I messaged Lauren and her partner to tell them about our pregnancy. We didn't tell them before the visit because I wanted the focus to be solely on James and me. They've also always expressed that visits should be as positive as possible. We asked if we could discuss the best way to give this news to James and started talking about planning the next visit. Chaos. Lauren and her partner replied, saying how disappointed they were in how we'd handled this. Lauren broke down crying in tears due to anxiety about what this could mean for James, and James figured something was up and basically put 1 and 1 together. He's furious and extremely upset, thinking he's being replaced. He doesn't even want my name mentioned. Cue Lauren accusing me of not doing enough to visit. I have sought counseling and have been told I have a form of CPTSD from the abandonment at my weakest time, and not forgetting the amount it costs to travel and stay where they live. The partner, who typically goes above and beyond and is an excellent role model to James, telling me it wasn't the courageous thing to do and that we should have brought it up on the day. Why would I spring that on them with 0 notice? We've been told to leave them alone for a while. I can't see how we could have approached this any better than we did. When messaging, I also asked when a good time to message would be so that James wouldn't be using Lauren's phone for games, etc. Am I the idiot? Edit. I thought about visitation rights several years ago, but the truth is that I need the flexibility to arrange and rearrange if need be the visits to coincide with how I'm dealing with my health, not to mention my bank account. Oh my goodness, not the idiot, OP. You're doing everything you possibly can to be a good dad. You've had every obstacle in your way, most of them put there by your idiot ex. You handled everything perfectly. I think your ex is jealous. You sound like a great dad. Please don't feel like the idiot. You're absolutely not. May I suggest that your son's autism is not the problem at all, but instead, his mother's reaction that exacerbates things for him. And in this case, I think she's done it on purpose. I think some small part of her was hoping you'd keep begging her to take you back, rather than realize it wasn't meant to be and move on from her. You have a right to move on. After all, she did. And you can't be held hostage to this idea that every change you make in your life will negatively affect James. That's absurd. You can't erase one child to suit the needs of the other. Get a family lawyer and seek legal advice on what to do about seeing James more regularly. I'll go against the grain and give your ex some grace. Come on, dude. You can't afford to visit the son you currently have, and your mental health can't take it, but your wallet and mental state can't afford to have a whole second kid that you'll have to fully raise. And you're not interested in getting the courts involved to properly settle the custody dispute because it's so hard for you to see him. And you're asking us why your firstborn feels like maybe you're abandoning him? You don't think that maybe the reason everyone's mad at you is because you're insisting you don't have the time, money, or mental health for your son, but you do have all that for another kid with your new wife? Do you really not see the issue there? You are the idiot. My fiance, Allie, 31 female, is the type of person who calls people 2 to 3 times in a row when she wants to get a hold of them for anything. The first time she did this to my parents, we were driving to a concert, and I asked her to call my folks from my phone. She called, but they didn't pick up. She immediately called my mom again, and I asked what she was doing. My mom picked up right away, worried. Allie asked our question, and I told Mom it was a false alarm and hung up. She asked why my mom had been irritated, and I explained to her that my family only calls twice in a row if it's an emergency. Allie's never followed this and will repeatedly call them for the most mundane stuff. If one doesn't answer, she'll sometimes call my other parent. That's to say, a couple of weeks ago, she broke her leg while working around the house. I was in a workshop that day and could only check my phone on breaks. She called my parents since they live a couple of streets over, but neither answered their phones. She ended up having to call an ambulance. I got her message about 2 hours after she fell and went to the hospital. She was pretty mad at my parents when I got there. I let them know what happened, and they also rushed to the hospital to apologize and check on her. She didn't want them coming in, so they sat outside for a bit, got her flowers from the gift shop, and eventually went home. I took some time off work to care for her, and my parents had been offering as much help as possible. Her sister drove in to help so I could go back to work. Last night, I decided to make a nicer dinner than usual and wanted to invite my parents. I gave her a heads up that I was inviting them and asked if she wanted me to arrange some of the chairs at the table so we could all eat together. She got mad that I wanted to invite them and that I shouldn't want to see or speak with them after they ignored her. Her sister agrees with her and feels that I'm putting my parents over my soon-to-be wife. Until now, I haven't said anything to her about the situation, but I did then and told her it was a massive screw-up in communication on everyone's part, and we all talked it out to put it behind us. Neither she nor her sister think she should stop being mad at them. Was I an idiot to invite my parents over? Edit. My parents were sitting outside for their quiet time when she called. She called 3 times for my mom, then 2 times for my dad, which sadly is normal for her. She didn't send them a text. It's common for them not to answer calls or texts and wait to return them later when they do that. I had to do the 2-call routine so they knew it was urgent. Not the idiot. Allie made the usual number of calls that she did for any occasion and didn't text to let them know this was an actual emergency. OP certainly doesn't need to cut his parents off over this. This story is the same as the Cry Wolf story. Guess Allie didn't learn it. She didn't listen, and so your parents had no way of knowing it was an emergency instead of just another Tuesday. Does she have an explanation for how they should have known? Or is she assuming that when she wants to get a hold of someone, they should drop everything and talk to her, whether or not it's urgent? Because the latter isn't respecting other people's time and priorities. Everyone was focusing on the double calls, but it wasn't an issue. Your fiancé likely felt scared, and her fear ramped up when she couldn't reach anyone to help. I would not focus on the double call situation, but on her being hurt and unable to reach anyone in an emergency. Arguing over phone habits isn't going to resolve any of this, and from her perspective, she feels like she's getting blamed for feeling alone and scared. My ex-fiancé, Maddie, works for my mom as a personal assistant. I'm not going to lie and say I had no weird feelings about it when we broke up, but I also didn't expect my mom to just fire her. My mom is extremely dependent on Maddie and, to be honest, probably thinks of her like a daughter. When I met my beautiful wife, Lainey, she had reservations and wasn't comfortable about Maddie still being in the picture, but I assured her she was simply my mom's assistant. Lainey still resents my mom for keeping Maddie around, but knows I'm devoted to her. Recently, we revealed to our families that we're expecting our first child. We just told our parents and weren't planning on telling anyone else. To be fair, we didn't mention this to my mom, and I guess she told Maddie, who thought it was a big joke and told everyone. Lainey was furious, so I confronted my mom. My mom said she didn't realize it was a secret, and she didn't think Maddie would tell so many people. She said she mentioned it while Maddie did her hair for an event. Now Lainey was irate and so was I, so I told my mom she had gone too far, and it was sick how she kept Maddie in our lives. I said if she wants to see her grandchild, she needs to fire Maddie so we can all move on. My mom told me I was acting like a child. She didn't give in to people threatening her. Now everyone's saying I'm an idiot, and I don't know. I would feel slightly bad if Maddie lost her job, because I know she makes bank, plus all the trips and gifts. She isn't going to get another job like that, but my priority is Lainey's well-being. Info. What caused the breakup? Did she do anything terrible towards you? I have an ex who tried to get me arrested by telling some, luckily, very stupid lies. I have another who stalked me and made death threats. If my family employed either one, I'd be no contact before they could blink. So I get that some people have hard lines about their exes, but unless this chick cheated on you or something else awful, you're a major idiot for threatening your mom with your child. I feel like you are the idiot. Instead of threatening your mom and trying to get her to fire your ex, which could also potentially ruin her life depending on what happens after she's fired, you should just tell your mom you're not comfortable with her telling Maddie things about your life, and you would prefer it if she wouldn't mention you around Maddie, and vice versa. Also, firing the ex for being an ex feels like opening mom up for a lawsuit. At the very least, it's unethical, and I don't think for 1 second people won't know the real reason she was let go. It sounds like OP's ex's comments about growing a backbone are spot on. He's letting his wife's resentment about his ex's relationship with her mother-in-law steer his actions. Otherwise, why wouldn't he have asked her to fire her when they broke up? Re-examine your values, OP. I'm with your mom. Who she employs is none of your business, especially if there's no reason that the employee would be around your kid. Grow up. I met my father in September of last year. I, a teen male, had recently lost my mom to cervical cancer and had found out that my grandparents and 2 of my aunts didn't want to keep taking care of me. Instead of letting me go to my aunt out of state, they contacted the man who wanted nothing to do with me before and involved a social worker. I would need to go to him instead of the aunt I knew, who did want me. Because the social worker was involved, she tried to put me with my biological father over my aunt. I pleaded with her to let me live with my aunt, and my aunt also pleaded for this, but we were denied. I was told a biological parent will always get custody over an aunt or uncle who has no legal rights to the child, especially when my original guardians, my grandparents, sent me to my father instead. So in October, 3.5 weeks after I met him for the first time, I moved to another state to live with my father and his family. For those who will tell me I was lied to or whatever, my father has admitted he knew about me, but he was disgusted and embarrassed by his promiscuous ways in the past and for having premarital intimacy, and he decided to start over. He said his wife was thankfully very open-minded and was happy for me to live with them and have a relationship with them despite my origins, which have nothing to do with me. My father and his wife are very religious. I'm not. I was raised by an atheist mom and had a mostly atheist family, and I have no interest in joining or taking part in anything religious. This is a serious point of contention with my father and his family, who tried taking me to church and trying to set it up so I would join their church and get baptized. I've refused. I've also said I want to live with my aunt, but that gets denied. I talked to her via DMs and video calls, but they're not the same. She did try to petition for custody, but the different states add complications, especially when a social worker was still actively involved. Things got way more tense recently because 2 of my father's other kids were questioning me on why I don't pray and stuff like that, and I told them I didn't believe. They tried to get me involved with other church stuff and I said no. They got upset and tried to do all this converting stuff, and they're only middle schoolers for goodness sake. My father tried telling me I shouldn't shoot it down so quickly, and he told me to give it a try, and I said no. Then his wife decided to get her say, and she told me I should be grateful for a chance to be saved. I'm being very stubborn and should show them respect as my parents to let them guide me into religion. I told her they were not my parents and they were randos I was forced to live with, and I would never take part in their religion, ever. And they needed to accept that because I don't believe in God or anything. They didn't like my closed-mindedness, and they were angry I spoke to them with such finality. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. Am I right in understanding that your bio father does want you to live with them now, despite having nothing to do with you in the previous 15 to 16 years, and you have the other and preferred option. This seems enough to label him as an idiot already. Trying to indoctrinate you? As long as it's not forceful or has other important things contingent on it, it's not too bad, but you definitely have the final say. It's straightforward. Tell all his church fellows that you're the kid he abandoned because you were born out of wedlock, that you're an atheist, that you have a loving aunt, but they're forcing you to live there. These religious good people care for their reputation above all else. I wouldn't be surprised if they're twisting the story to make your dad seem like a martyr. Oh, and the OP should end with, "Oh, and since I have no friends here, I'm really looking forward to meeting all your kids." I have to wonder if Dad is only taking OP in because of SSI payments. OP should be receiving benefits after his mother passed away. Where is this money? The money goes to the person raising the child. The money's for the child's benefit but doesn't go directly to the child. I wish you the best and hope you can move in with your aunt sooner than when you turn 18. My older brother's 26, name is Victor, but no one has ever called him that. Everyone calls him Vic. I call him Vicky, which is something I started as a kid. He's 10 years older than me and he doesn't live at home, yada yada. Anyway, we're going on our family vacation in a week. I was allowed to invite a friend, a female teen. I invited a friend from my dance class. We've gotten pretty close recently. I told her we'd be sharing a room with Vic. She was fine, and we started planning our trip. Anyway, yesterday my friend came over. She's never met Vic, obviously, and our parents wanted her to meet him before we fly, because he'll basically be responsible for us. Our parents pair the kids off so they get to relax. When she was introduced to him, she immediately freaked out and told me she no longer wanted to go. She got her parents to take her straight back home. I was obviously upset, and I didn't know what had happened. She called me later and said she was upset because I'd never told her Vic was a man. I was confused because, yeah, I'd never outright called him a man, but I've definitely called him he before and referred to him as my brother. I said this to her, and she told me she never heard me call him he, blamed my accent, and that she assumed brother meant my other brothers. I have 7. She told me she doesn't feel comfortable sharing a room with a grown man for a week and no longer wants to come. I'm really upset, but I feel like if it was that big of a deal for her, she should have asked. I told her she was being unreasonable. Fair enough, she shouldn't go if she's uncomfortable, but it's not my fault she didn't ask. She thinks I should have been upfront about it. My parents think I'm being mean, and my brothers are divided. So, am I the idiot? You must have known that your friend believed Vicky was female, but even if not, you had an obligation to be clear with her. You're the one who withheld vital information from your friend. Why would she think of asking if Vicky was a male? You've been unclear. Is it even appropriate for your much older brother to share a room with you? There's a lot of undressing going on in the room, and it would undoubtedly make a stranger self-conscious, if not a sister. Not even considering these things makes you the idiot. The friend is a teenager, and her brother is 26. How idiotic is this family to think it's appropriate for an adult male to share an intimate space with an unrelated female child? Aside from wildly inappropriate, that is, I'm having a hard time understanding how the situation even happened. She never once said, "My brother Vic" or something. I'm going against the grain and saying no idiots here. You're both teens. It was a miscommunication. You thought she knew, but she didn't. But in that case, your parents are the idiots because they should have made your friend's parents aware of the accommodations. As a parent, I would absolutely have a problem with such an arrangement.